Hi, this is Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I'm also the host of Moms Don't Have Time to Lose Weight, and I'm the editor of the anthology, which you should run out and buy, called Moms Don't Have Time to, a quarantine anthology. All proceeds of that book go to COVID-19 vaccine research. And I'm the editor-in-chief of Moms Don't Have Time to Write, a new publication on Medium, and we're accepting submissions, so please send your personal essays there. And if all that isn't enough, you can follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens, and my website is zibbyowens.com. Okay, now back to this amazing podcast. Today's sponsor is Gemist. I don't know about you, but every so often I really need to mix up my shampoo and conditioner because I get sick of whatever I'm using. So I took this quiz online on Gemist's website, and they recommended products for me and then sent me the shampoo and conditioner, and now I am obsessed. So it's just amazing, and now I'm really excited that they're my sponsor, not to mention that Gemist is a women-owned company. The CEO and founder is Allison Haar. She's a mom of two, a dog mom, and a Harvard grad. It's a subscription service, so I don't even have to think about when I'm running out, as opposed to trying to squeeze out those last little drops from the containers and having nothing left. And they're quality ingredients, which are sulfate-free, paraben-free, dye-free, never tested on animals, and manufactured in the U.S., so that's all awesome. And it's shipped right to me, and will be to you as well. And it looks and smells amazing. So definitely try it out. If you're ready to have the best hair of your life, try Gemist. And right now, my listeners can give Gemist a try and get 20% off their shampoo and conditioner subscription. So go to Gemist.com, get your personal recommendation who doesn't love a quiz, and enter Zibby, Z-I-B-B-Y, at checkout for 20% off and free 2-day shipping. That's Gemist.com, Gemist.com, and enter code Zibby at checkout to get the best hair of your life. Jennifer Ryan is a nonfiction editor and the author of The Chilbury Ladies Choir, a novel that was inspired by stories her grandmother told her when she was a little girl. Her latest book, The Kitchen Front, is an unforgettable novel, truly, about a BBC-sponsored wartime cooking competition during World War II, where the grand prize was a job as the program's first female co-host. Both her books, The Chilbury Ladies Choir and then her second novel, The Spies of Shilling Lane, were praised by People magazine, the New York Times Book Review, NPR, and Publishers Weekly. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Zibby. It's really great to be here. Thanks.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about your latest novel, The Kitchen Front, which really, I think, has a genius device, plot, and structure. So could you please tell listeners what it's about, and then we'll talk about what inspired you to write it?
So, well, it's about a cooking contest in Second World War Britain when there was a lot of rations and food shortages. And basically, the premise of the book is that there's 4 contestants and they're all trying to win one prize. And the cooking contest runs in 3 different parts: the starter, a main course, and a dessert. But all of them have to run strictly by the rations that are available to them, and also using as many little techniques as they can to use the rations in a very good way. And it's basically, I kind of came up with the idea because I wanted to showcase all of these amazingly creative ways that housewives and cooks in the Second World War kind of got through the whole rationing system. And yeah, so that's kind of how it all started.
Well, it's so neat because it's like you made it Top Chef World War II version. Do you know what I mean? Like you create the show and then you see, even with the rations, I mean, I couldn't believe you listed them somewhere. And of course, now I can't find them, but just how little people had to work with. I mean, it was really crazy how little a whole family would get for a given week. And you said like per adult. So I think it was per a child older than, what was it, 8 or 12, they would get a certain amount of meat and a certain amount of sugar and a certain amount of, everything. And I think about like how impossible it is to feed my kids now with like all the food in the world. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean? Like with like the supermarket's full of options, right? And then to have Anyway, tell me a little bit about did you make these recipes? Because one of the things, and sorry, I'm rambling a little here because I'm like really excited, but one of the things I thought was so cool about this book is that you have recipes at the end of every chapter when you're talking about the different women, like Fenley Factory's curried salt cod and all these different like homily pie and everything. Where do these recipes come from? Let's start with that.
So most of them came from the Ministry of Food. There was a scary sounding thing in the Second World War. And right at the beginning of the Second World War, the British government, they realized there was going to be a food issue. And I think everyone in Europe had almost the same problem, and they dealt with it in different ways. But the British government, they were all over this. They were like, okay, we don't want people to starve because that'll lose us the war. And so they put an awful lot of effort into it. And it was very draconian. I mean, really, they basically took over all the farms, told all the farmers what they had to produce. And then they took over all of the shops and basically said, right, this is what you have to sell. And this is, everyone had a ration book, and they had to, very strictly abide by the whole ration book system. And it was, so I came across, there was an awful lot of leaflets and recipes that they printed in order to try and get the whole population on their side with the whole rationing thing. So a lot of them are Ministry of Food originals. Yes.
Wow.
So,
and I know in your bio, it said that you and your daughters love to cook. So did you actually make any of these yourself?
Of course. You know what?
Okay.
There is nothing so bad as writing a book about cooking, because you just end up thinking, I wonder what that tastes like. And you just end up like lunchtime. I had mushroom soup for so long. The mushroom soup recipe is so tempting. And but there were other things as well. There was all of the cakes. We did all of the cakes plus more. We kind of trialed an awful lot of extra cakes that never made it into the book as well. And it was great fun. But I also got a couple of recipe checkers as well to recipe check some of the more complicated ones, just to make sure the balance of ingredients worked well and everything, so that people could actually make them.
You should take some of the ones that didn't make it into the book and put it on your website.
I should. That is a great idea. That's brilliant.
A little bonus content,
Yeah, no, definitely. There was an awful lot of eggless cakes in different guises. So that was quite good. One thing that I didn't try some of the more unusual ones, like sheep's head roll. I don't think you can even buy a sheep's head these days. Where would you go?
Yeah, I don't.
Whole Foods.
I don't want to know where you would go. Yeah. Whole Foods. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I know that, so your grandmother used to tell you stories about World War II. Is this right?
Yeah.
Did she inform some of the backdrop for this novel?
Oh yeah, no, very much so. She just loved cooking, and she was like renowned in our family as the big cook, the one who could make the gravy that's just perfect and everything. And we called her Party Granny, actually, because she loved hosting parties and things, and she would make the most amazing spreads and keep everyone very fed and everything. And she very much had this idea that you nourish who you love, and giving someone food and feeding is how she demonstrated her love for us, I think, as her family, but everyone, I think. She talked about cooking a lot and did a lot of cooking, and her cooking was very different from, say, my mother's or what we would cook today. And a lot of that was because rationing went on in the UK until 1954. So she would cook an awful lot with offal. There was a lot of offal recipes, and there was an awful lot of meat fat as well. So lard, she would cook a lot with lard and suet and things, and put it into pastries and puddings and things like that. And I mean, it was just a very different type of cooking that she would do. And it always sort of intrigued me. And then when I started looking into the Second World War, I was like, of course, this is exactly what she used to cook. And these are the reasons why. And I suppose in a way, there's an element as well in the book, which is like there's a legacy of, passing down traditions from generation to generation. And that, her recipe book, her cooking book, my mother has it. And it's just this wonderful feeling that there's this knowledge and tradition that is passed down. And I really wanted to, bring that back to life and everything.
I have in my kitchen, I have the whole container case with all of the note cards of my grandmother's handwritten recipes, and all the things that she pulled out of magazines and newspapers back in the day. She would be probably 90 something at this point, but no, I love it. And you can take them out and they're all yellowed, and they're probably not things I would necessarily want to eat, but there's cakes in there that are amazing. And I remember her making, and it's just so nice to have that record of another time and place. I should put it in a book, or I should do something cool with it, but I haven't.
That is so cool. You see, that's the kind of thing, like her recipe book, it's got all these extra bits like tucked in and everything. And her handwriting is really badly spelled and everything.
Yeah, my grandmother too. They're like, she doesn't seem to know how to do a lowercase letter for some reason. But anyway. So you used to be a book editor. Tell me about going from being a book editor to writing these 3 novels. Like, how did that happen? And when did you always want to write? Tell me your whole story.
So I always did want to write. I think particularly after I became a book editor, because there's something about really writing and editing somebody else's work. And I think it just makes you think, I can do this, I can do that. I think it's something I've always, in the background, I've always wanted to do, but I was like, oh no, but I would never be able to do that. And then when I became an editor, I thought, oh, well, maybe I could. So I always started, right back in my 20s, I started kind of writing little bits and pieces and everything, and writing novels that never got finished. And after I had my first daughter, and I thankfully gave up work for a little while, and suddenly I was like, right, this is it. This is my chance to do something. I was doing a bit of part-time editorial work at the time. And one of the books that I was editing freelance was a book on the war in Afghanistan. And I the information inside and just the kind of the details of the war and how it affected the society there really it got inside me. And I just thought, this is it. It's like war is just such a big moment in time culturally, I think, particularly for women, the women involved, I've always had this love for the Second World War because of my grandmother. And I think those two things came together. And I thought, this is it. I need to write a book about the Second World War, a novel. And it's about women and how they changed, how they had to change, but how that change was for the good, how much freedom and excitement and challenge it was for them. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started. So it was my second child was just born, and I just thought, right, I'm going to do this. And it's a difficult time to start writing a novel. But luckily, my youngest daughter was quite, she slept well. So I had every nap time, and you just snatch like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and do the best you can, really. I set up my desk at the end of the dining room table where it still is today. And because, we live in an open plan house, you can keep an eye on everything when you're, there. So you can kind of coordinate some kind of playing activity and kind of come back, have a quick, or you can have people at the other end of the table doing their homework or, some sort of art project, and everything. So there's been an awful lot of that. And the big moment for me was when my youngest went to preschool, and suddenly I had like these 3 sacrosanct hours, and I would never let anything get in the way of those 3 hours, So yeah, I mean, now they're a bit older, so it's a bit easier now, and with
how old are they now?
They are, so the youngest is 11 and the eldest is 15. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be my year. This was my year when my littlest was starting kindergarten. So I have 2 7th graders and a 1st grader and a kindergartner. And I was like, wow, I just have to get this guy to kindergarten, and I'm going to have the whole day to myself to work and do whatever. And I can pursue anything. I'll have all this time. And then of course this pandemic happened, and I'm like, okay, half the year they've been in the next room, it's been crazy. So maybe eventually, but then of course I'll miss them. So anyway, yes, the time when they're actually out of the house and in school, I feel like is the only time. I mean, I keep my ringer on because you never know, but that I feel like I can do I have like the freedom to pursue something. Do you know what I mean?
I do. But in a way, that's what I had to do with, is just kind of walk away from that idea and just think, right,
Yep.
I can do it with them just over there. And I can just come here and just quickly do a little bit and then go back and everything. I think in a way, I always think writing is a little bit like reading. And you can just pick up a novel and just carry it. And I've always just been able to kind of go in and I'm just like, there again.
Yeah.
And I always think that's a bit like that. And you kind of go back to where you were with the writing and you're like, oh, yeah, that's where I was. And, carry on and everything. I'm an editor by profession as well. And I think that's quite helpful, knowing that I'm going to go back over it again.
Yes. No, I know there are some authors who need to like have a sense of quiet or a place, and that's fine. Everybody's got different preferences, but anything I've tried to write, even if it's just an article or whatever, it's in the doctor's waiting room or it's, on the floor while I'm playing with it, it's like, I can't be precious about it. Like I've got all these kids. So anyway, and sometimes I think, and I don't know if you agree or not, it's like the more chaos, the more like material is floating around and like you're kind of inspired. Like I feel like the days when nothing goes on, I can't even write one article. You know what I mean? I'm like, I have like 4 hours free without podcasts. Oh, I should get that thing done. And then like the time goes by. But if I only have like 30 minutes to get it done, I'll get it done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. When my little one was at preschool and I had those 3 hours, oh my goodness, I was writing those thousands of words, they were just all coming out. But in a way, though, I think, writing it takes a lot of kind of emotional energy out of you. I think novel writing particularly. And if you know that you've got at that point at midday, you've just got to drop everything and go and do errands with your daughter for the rest of the afternoon, you could put your all into it with the knowledge that, the rest of the day you have a different type of taxing.
So what's your favorite thing now to both cook when you're in your own kitchen front, and what is your favorite thing to read?
So I think cooking is, I really still love that mushroom soup.
Okay, all right.
Still, the mushroom soup really goes down well here. Just all sorts. I mean, I think it's to do with creativity. It's the same sort of thing as there. It's kind of like, this is a moment to try different things and, just really spread your wings and find out what works, And reading, oh, I'm just a historical fiction fan. That's what I love. And I'll always go back to it. Do you know what I mean? Every so often I read a bit of nonfiction, but it's normally World War II related.
Well, there is no lack of that. I mean, there is so much good, amazing historical fiction based on World War II. I feel like every day I get 5 different emails about a new one popping up. But I think what you've been able to do too is sort of stand out. Like with this book, for example, The Kitchen Front, it's a new take on a time that has been written about over and over and over and over again. And it's not just the cooking, it's also the relationship you make with the sisters and how, one sister is struggling and the other sister is like having this more lavish lifestyle and what the war does to a family. And I don't know. It's just, there's always a new way to sort of package up a topic to make it relatable, regardless of when it happens.
Yeah, no, I think that what that comes down to is not so much that it's based in the Second World War, but I think you can kind of drop down in any period of time and create a good story with some of those storylines. But I think what the Second World War does, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is that it's actually there's like a sociologist, Francis Merrill, he said that war is the biggest instigator of social change. And I think that's such an important message is you're kind of making, this huge, you're in a situation where there's this huge change that is going on. There is massive kind of implications for you and your family and everything. And so you're kind of putting these familial situations like the two sisters in a situation that is already complicated by the situation of war, if you see what I mean. So yeah, so in a way, I think that makes it different. I mean, a lot of the the war books that are novels that are coming out are to do with the war itself, if you know what I mean. Whereas this is more of kind of home front kind of take on it. It's more, the war is bubbling in the background. There's all these cultural and social implications that are filtering through to women like these.
Do you watch cooking shows yourself?
Oh, yeah. Could you tell?
I could tell. I was just thought I might ask.
I love cooking shows, yeah. But I have to say, I don't really have a huge amount of time to watch them. But one of my daughters loves cooking, and she loves watching these shows as well. So we spend a lot of time watching, particularly the Great British Baking Show and some of the other kind of dessert kind of orientated shows, yeah.
We were trying the other night to find something, it's tough having kids that range in age from 6 to 13 to find like a family movie, like it's tough. We go through, it takes half an hour just to find something, but everybody loves these cooking shows. Like everyone loves Nailed It. And like, it's one of the only things we can agree on and that everybody likes. And I was kind of thinking, a friend of mine was like, why is everybody sitting around watching cooking shows? Cause like his 5-year-old loves cooking shows and something. I was chatting with him. And I think it's like in the olden days, maybe everybody was cooking all the time and everybody learned, and feeding ourselves is that's the most important human thing we can do, right? Without food, that's it. We have to rely on food. And instead of being by, the ankles or the, apron skirts or whatever you call it of parents as they cook, since we're ordering in or we're, taking out frozen dinners, sometimes I don't know. I feel like there's this evolutionary reason why younger people are drawn, not just younger people, but people in general are drawn to cooking shows. It's like how we survive. And yes, it's fun and entertaining, but I do feel like there's this very deep reason why we all are drawn to these shows.
Yeah, I think
that's my theory.
I think actually, you know what? I think this is why the government in the Second World War, the Ministry of Food, wanted everyone to have cooking contests in the Second World War. I think it's exactly that reason. I think contests are just interesting. That you like before long, even with Nailed It, like me and my daughter are there going, okay, who do you want to win? Like, and it's a half-hour show, but we both like, they go, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And everything. And I think there is definitely an element of, what's going to, are they going to make something that's really nice, or is it going to be a complete disaster? And yes. In a way, though, I mean, that's the thing about cooking shows, I think, is that if it is a disaster, it's not the end of the world.
No, it's often very funny, which is a good lesson to remember for my own sort of cooking foibles and disasters. So, and a good sort of metaphor for life. You can try and sometimes it just turns out badly, but hopefully you laugh and you move on. So I don't know. Seems like a good lesson for these trying times these days. So are you working on a new novel now?
I am, yeah. I am working on a new novel, and I shouldn't really talk about it, though. But it is set in the Second World War again. I mean, it's also kind of home front based, really. And it's just such a fascinating time. As I said before, I think that the lengths the government went to kind of standardize rationing and just, control people's lives. They actually say, I once read that it's the most controlled situation that you can get rather than being, completely communist. Yeah. So yeah, and once again, some interesting and intriguing characters. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, I'm excited. Do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
I think finish something. One of the problems I always had, and I think a lot of it was because I was working full time, is that, it takes such a long time to write a novel. And I think if you, and you are bound to have other ideas that you think are better than the one that you're writing. And I think the other thing is that once you're starting to write something, after a certain amount of time, it loses its novelty. So you instantly think, oh, I quite like this other idea over there. Oh, let me have a look at this other idea. And when really you need to just focus on one thing and just finish it. Yeah.
I just started this online publication for Medium. It's called Moms Don't Have Time to Write. And I think you should write a piece for it called When Novels Lose Their Novelty and like how to stay focused. So if you're interested, or if not for me, for someone, I think that would be really, that would be a very inspiring piece of writing advice. So anyway, think about it. All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. This was so fun. And I'm so glad we got to talk about your book. I'm contemplating mushroom soup now, even though it's not normally a favorite, but you've sort of sold me on it. So maybe I'll put this in the rotation. And thank you. I'll be thinking of you next time we all watch Nailed It.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun meeting you and talking about the book.
You too. I hope our paths cross in person one day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Today's sponsor was Gemmist, GEMMIST.com. Give it a try, 20% off their shampoo and conditioner subscriptions. Go to gemmist.com and get your personalized recommendation. Enter Zibby at checkout for 20% off. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.